And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Starting off with Friday morning's flying weather, we've got marginal VFR here in the western interior, now spreading slowly into the central part of the state. Some IFR along the Alaska Range. More IFR up here, the Brooks Range, up across the north slope and the Arctic coast. VFR in the eastern interior. VFR breaking out here over the southwest interior. And another batch of IFR with the next pretty good storm system coming into the Aleutians, pushing IFR all the way to ADAC by tomorrow morning, and IFR for the North Gulf Coast into the Gulf of Alaska, and marginal VFR along the coast of the Panhandle. And for the afternoon, stays VFR for the southeast coast, IFR for Yakutat, and some areas of marginal VFR here over the southeast interior, and a lot of marginal VFR up here over the western part of the state, especially up toward the Brooks Range, and IFR for the western central Arctic coast, marginal VFR for the northern Bering Sea, and that extends back to this area of IFR with that active system coming eastward across the southern Bering and the front pushing in toward the central Aleutians. And then for Saturday morning, this area continues to build out here, slowly moving eastward there, not quite making it to either the Pribilofs or the Unimak Island area. Looks like VFR though for the most of Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, the northern Bay areas here inland, seeing some marginal VFR up to the western Alaska Range. But the main area of marginal conditions will be from the Yukon Delta northward into the Brooks Range with IFR over the western and central Brooks Range, marginal for the Arctic coast, and some good VFR here over the southeast interior, including south central Alaska, North Gulf Coast, Kodiak Island, and the Panhandle stays VFR. And then for Saturday afternoon, good VFR for the southeast coast, in across the Gulf, northward through the central and eastern interior. Get up to the Brooks Range and you hit some marginal VFR with IFR for the eastern Arctic coast. And then that big system out here to the west, slowly pushing IFR into the Yukon Delta southward to near Togiak, and also sliding into the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians, ADAC and ATGA as well. And looking at the Brooks Range tomorrow for Anatuvik Pass, marginal VFR, same forecast for Adigan, marginal VFR, Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, and rainy VFR in the forecast, windy, occasionally marginal for Isabel, Mentasta mostly VFR, and occasional marginal VFR for Tanita. Portage seeing improvement, marginal VFR becoming VFR in the afternoon toward evening, and Chilkoot and White, another VFR day once again. And the freezing levels here, chilly air up over the northern Bering Sea into the Chukchi Sea, and 6,000 feet here with northerly flow coming all the way down south of the Alaska Peninsula. Big upper level high pressure area developing over northwest Canada. So we got 14,000 foot freezing levels there extending into the southeast coast, and about 8 to 10,000 feet out west over the Aleutians. Icing, next system pushing a big area of considerable moderate rime icing into the Pribilof Islands, across the Bering Sea, back down in toward Chimionat there, and also some pretty good potential for considerable moderate icing there from the Kobuk Valley up across the western Brooks Range to the Arctic coast. And from there, taking a look at the jet stream, we have a upper level trough at this elevation, kind of kicking through tomorrow and being pushed along by northwest winds at 95 knots. In advance of that, good southwest winds up to 105 knots over the east side, light for the Panhandle. And then with this next system out here to the west, we've got west-southwesterlies about 90 to 95 knots cutting across ADAC and ATGA. 9,000 foot wind showing that next surge of wind coming into the southern Bering Sea ahead of the next front there, up to 60 knots or so. Otherwise, west-northwest, 35 knots coming into the western interior behind that trough that's swinging eastward here. Southwest 55 knots over the eastern Copper River Basin. And for 3,000 feet, west-northwest winds tomorrow with higher pressure building here over the southwest interior. So that's going to result in some gusty winds, Kamishak Bay and along the southern Kenai Peninsula coast. Westerlies at about 35 knots there with this low up over the Brooks Range. And then out to the west, the strongest winds will be found here in advance of the next front here, up to 65 to 70 knots, slowly pushing eastward. And turbulence-wise, with those strong winds, considerable moderate turbulence in the forecast here from roughly Unalaska by late tomorrow afternoon, but extending westward here to Kiska Island throughout much of the day. And light to isolated moderate turbulence here in a broad area, the central interior, right out to the western Arctic coast, southward across the Seward Peninsula, and also some mechanical turbulence here with those northwest winds, west-northwesterlies for Kamishak Bay, the Marin Islands, northern Kodiak Island, and the southern Kenai Peninsula.